Hey viewers, welcome to African Tales by Affy. Please kindly click the subscribe button to get notified for more amazing stories. It was a chilly evening in the city. The sky was painted in soft pinks and golds as the sun began to set behind the tall buildings. Cars honked, people rushed home, and city lights blinked to life. On one of the quiet side streets, a man named Julian Rivers stepped out of his black car. Julian wasn't just any man, he was one of the richest people in the city. He owned big companies, lived in a sky-high penthouse, and wore suits that looked like they belonged in a museum. But Julian wasn't showy or mean. He was quiet, thoughtful, and a little bit lonely. He had just finished a long meeting and told his driver, "I need some fresh air. I'll walk the rest of the way." As Julian walked, something caught his eye. There, on the cold sidewalk near a bakery that had closed hours ago, was a girl, curled up, barely moving. Her hair was messy, her dress was wrinkled, and her face was pale. Julian rushed over. "Miss? Are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. The girl didn't answer. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s. Her name, he would later learn, was Lena Grace. But at that moment, she was just a stranger in need. Julian looked around. People passed by, but no one stopped. "She needs help," he whispered. He pulled out his phone, ready to call an ambulance. But something stopped him. The girl stirred just a little, then mumbled, "No. Don't take me. I don't want to go." Her voice was so soft, like a breeze in spring. Julian hesitated. "She's not hurt, just drunk," he realized. And scared. He didn't want her to wake up alone in a cold hospital bed. So he made a decision. "I'll take her to my penthouse. Just for tonight. She'll be safe there." Gently, he picked her up and carried her to his car. Julian's penthouse was like a palace in the clouds, glass windows from floor to ceiling, soft carpets, a golden piano, and a view of the whole city twinkling below. When the car pulled into the building's private garage, the doorman blinked in surprise. "Mr. Rivers? Do you need help?" "No, thank you," Julian said, cradling Lena carefully. "Just open the elevator, please." He carried her all the way up to the top floor and laid her on the couch. Then he brought a blanket, a glass of water, and a soft pillow. "She'll feel better in the morning," he said, quietly. But even as he sat across the room, Julian couldn't stop glancing at her. "Who are you?" he whispered. "What happened to you out there?" That night, he barely slept. The next morning, light poured into the room. Birds chirped softly from the balcony. And on the couch, Lena began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open. She blinked, confused. Where am I?" she said, sitting up too fast. Her head spun. "Ow. You're safe," Julian said, standing near the kitchen with a cup of tea. "You fainted on the sidewalk. I found you. My name is Julian." Lena's eyes widened. "Wait. What?" I don't remember much." Julian gently placed the tea on the table beside her. "You were drunk. It looked like you were alone. I didn't want to leave you." Lena looked around at the sparkling room, the glass walls, the city view. "This is your home?" she asked, stunned. Julian nodded. "Yes. I didn't want to scare you, so I brought you here. I'm sorry if it was too much." She rubbed her forehead. "I was at a party. My friend left early. I didn't know what to do. I don't drink like that usually." "You don't have to explain," Julian said kindly. "I'm just glad you're okay." There was silence. Then Lena looked at him, puzzled. "You helped me, even though you don't know me. Why?" Julian paused. Then he said, because you looked like you needed someone. And I've felt that way before too. Lena stared at him for a moment. Then she smiled, just a little. Thank you, Julian. He smiled back. You're welcome, Lena. It was the first time they said each other's names. Something warm filled the room. Like a candle flickering to life. They didn't know it yet, but that moment, just tea and soft voices, was the beginning of something neither of them had ever imagined. The smell of something delicious drifted through the air. Lena's eyes slowly opened again, this time to the soft golden light of morning and the sound of humming. She sat up and looked around. Everything was real, the sparkling windows, the fluffy blanket, the city below. But now there was something new. The smell of pancakes. She got up slowly and tiptoed toward the kitchen, following the scent. There, wearing an apron over his fancy shirt, was Julian Rivers, flipping a pancake with surprising skill. You cook? Lena asked, her voice still sleepy. Julian turned around, smiling. Good morning. And yes, I do, when I have the chance. Do you like pancakes? I love pancakes, Lena said, her eyes lighting up. He pulled out a chair for her at the kitchen island and placed a plate in front of her. Fluffy golden pancakes, strawberries, syrup, and a glass of fresh juice. She stared at it like it was magic. This is, wow. You didn't have to do all this. Julian smiled kindly. I wanted to. After all, it's not every day I have a guest fall asleep on the sidewalk. Lena giggled, covering her face. Oh no. I was that girl? You were that girl, Julian teased gently. But don't worry. You weren't loud or wild. Just very, very sleepy. They both laughed, and Lena took a bite of the pancake. Okay, this is officially the best breakfast I've ever had. Julian sat down across from her, his coffee steaming in his hands. For a moment, they just enjoyed the food and the peace. Then Julian asked softly, Can I ask, what happened last night? Lena's smile faded just a bit. She put her fork down. I don't usually drink, she began. But last night was my birthday. My friends took me out to celebrate. At first it was fun. But then everyone started dancing and drinking more, and I felt out of place. She looked down. My best friend left early. I didn't want to bother anyone, so I walked home. I didn't realize how dizzy I was. Julian listened carefully, not interrupting once. I didn't mean to fall asleep in the street, Lena said, embarrassed. I was just so tired. I didn't even know where I was. It's okay, Julian said gently. You don't have to explain everything. I'm just glad I found you. Lena looked at him. Why did you help me, really? I mean, you could have just walked by like everyone else. Julian looked thoughtful. Because once, a long time ago, someone helped me when I was lost too. Lena tilted her head. You? Lost? He nodded. Before I became all this, he said, gesturing to the fancy kitchen and skyscraper view, I was just a kid who had no idea what to do with his life. I made mistakes. Big ones. But someone saw good in me, and they didn't walk away. He paused. I guess I wanted to pass that kindness on. Lena was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled again. Well, I'm glad you did. Or I'd probably still be asleep behind that bakery. Julian laughed. You might have frozen. She giggled. Probably. So, what happens now? Should I go? Julian's smile faded just a little. Only if you want to. Lena looked surprised. You don't mind if I stay a bit? He shook his head. Not at all. I don't get much company. The penthouse is beautiful, but very quiet. She looked around. I can see that. He took a sip of coffee, then asked, What do you do, Lena? For work. Lena sighed. I used to work in a bookstore, but it closed last month. I'm kind of in between things right now. Julian leaned forward, interested. You like books? I love books, she said with a grin. Fairy tales, mysteries, stories about brave girls and big adventures. When I was little, I wanted to be a writer. Julian's eyes lit up. That's wonderful. Maybe you still can. She laughed softly. Maybe. But I'd probably need a job first. Julian stood and took her empty plate. Well, for now, how about we start with a small adventure? You can stay here today, rest, maybe read something from my library. You have a library? A whole room of books. Would you like to see it? Lena's eyes sparkled. More than anything. And just like that, a new kind of morning began, one with laughter, pancakes, and the first page of a friendship that neither of them expected. What they didn't know was that the world outside their peaceful breakfast was already buzzing with rumors and whispers. And soon, the quiet bond between them would be tested by eyes that watched from far too close. Lena twirled slowly in the middle of the library, her mouth wide open in awe. This is the most magical room I've ever seen, she said. All around her, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves reached high into the sky like the walls of a castle. Warm golden lamps glowed on every corner, and in the middle of it all was a big velvet chair that looked like a throne. Julian stood by the door, smiling at her delight. I come here when I need to think, he said. Or escape. Escape? Lena asked, her head peeking out from behind a tall book stack. He nodded. Even billionaires need a place to hide sometimes. Lena laughed. I thought rich people just went to space when they needed a break. Julian chuckled. That's not really my style. Lena pulled a book off the shelf. The Secret Garden. Oh, I read this 100 times as a kid. Julian looked surprised. Really? Me too. It's one of the first books that made me cry. They looked at each other, both smiling a little wider now. The day passed with more smiles than either of them had shared in weeks. They read, told stories, shared favorite book quotes, and even built a little pillow fort in the corner of the library. It felt like they were kids again, just two souls forgetting the big, busy world outside. But the world didn't forget them. Somewhere across the city, a woman named Miss Daphne, who worked as a gossip reporter, sat at her desk tapping through social media posts. She squinted at a blurry photo someone had shared online, a girl with messy hair being helped into a fancy car by a man in a suit. Is that Julian Rivers? She gasped. And who is she? Her fingers flew across her keyboard. Back at the penthouse, the calm started to crack. It began with a knock on the door. Julian frowned. I didn't call for anything, he said as he opened it. His assistant, Theo, stood there, holding a newspaper with big, bold letters across the top. Billionaire caught with mystery girl, who is she? Julian's jaw tightened. Already? Theo stepped inside, looking nervous. It's everywhere, sir. Social media, news apps. They're calling her your secret girlfriend. People are guessing she's a model. Or a scammer. Julian's face turned pale. That's ridiculous. Lena walked into the room just then, carrying a book and smiling. Hey, Julian, I just found. She froze when she saw Theo. Then her eyes fell on the newspaper. Her smile vanished. Is that about me? She whispered. Julian stepped toward her. Lena, I'm so sorry. I didn't think this would happen. She picked up the paper slowly, her hands shaking. "They're calling me the sidewalk girl." "It's just gossip," Julian said quickly. "It doesn't matter." But Lena's voice was trembling. "It does matter. To me. People will laugh. They'll think I'm some party girl who tricked you into taking me home." "You didn't," Julian said, firm. "You're not like that, and I know it." "But they don't," Lena said softly. "And soon, everyone I know will see this." There was a long silence. Theo cleared his throat. "Should I talk to the press? Say it was a misunderstanding?" Julian looked at Lena. "Only if you want me to." Lena stared at the photo again. Her eyes, once full of sparkle, now looked cloudy and sad. "I think I should go," she said quietly. "No," Julian said, stepping closer. "Lena, please. Don't let strangers chase you away. This is your place too now." She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "It's your place. And your world. I don't belong in it." She turned to walk away. "Wait," Julian said. "Lena, don't go like this. Please." She paused at the elevator. "Thank you for everything. Really. But sometimes kindness is just for a moment." Then, before he could stop her, the elevator doors closed, and she was gone. Julian stood in the quiet, still holding the newspaper in his hand. The sound of the city buzzed softly outside the windows, but inside, everything felt too quiet again. The library, the pancakes, the laughter, it had all been real. And now, it felt like a dream he had woken up from too soon. Outside, Lena walked through the city streets with her head low. People whispered as she passed. Cameras clicked. Phones pointed. The whole world seemed to be watching her, and all she wanted was to disappear. But deep in her heart, she knew something else was also true. She had felt safe. Seen. Heard. And even though she had walked away, she wasn't ready to let go of that feeling forever. Not yet. The city kept spinning. Tall buildings sparkled, cars rushed by, people scrolled through their phones, and the story of the sidewalk girl and the billionaire slowly faded from the front pages. But in two hearts, one in a quiet cafe, the other in a lonely penthouse, the story was still very much alive. Lena had moved into a tiny apartment over a bookstore where she worked part-time. The owner, Mrs. Bell, was kind and didn't care about the gossip. "I don't believe in newspapers," she told Lena with a wink. "I believe in people. And pancakes." "You like pancakes?" Lena smiled. "I love them." But even with warm-hearted Mrs. Bell, stacks of books, and a quiet corner to write in, something inside Lena felt empty. Every time she walked home and saw a black car pass, her heart skipped. Every time she made pancakes, she remembered a tall man in an apron flipping them with a grin. And every night, when she looked out at the city lights, she wondered if someone else was doing the same. That someone was Julian. He tried to focus on work, meetings, phone calls, interviews, but nothing felt right. The penthouse was too quiet. The library was too empty. He hadn't picked up a book in weeks. One afternoon, he stood by the giant window, holding the first book they had read together, The Secret Garden. "I wish I could see her again," he whispered. "Just once." At that exact moment, a knock came at the door. Julian opened it. There stood Theo, his assistant, holding a card with gold edges. "What's this?" Julian asked. Theo grinned. "An invitation. From someone who used to work in your library." Julian opened it slowly. Inside were the words, "Book Reading and Poetry Night, hosted by Lena Grace." Julian's heart beat faster. Below it, in small handwriting, was a note just for him. You said everyone deserves a second chapter. Here's mine. If you come, I'll know you still believe in stories that don't end halfway. He didn't wait a second. The bookstore was lit with strings of twinkly lights. Chairs were set up in rows, and at the front was a little stage made of wooden crates. Lena stood nervously with her poems in her hand. Her voice shook as she read the first one. The crowd clapped politely. Then, the door opened. And there he was. Julian. In a cozy sweater, not a suit. Holding a single sunflower. Lena froze. Julian? The crowd turned. Julian stepped forward. I never stopped believing, Lena. I just didn't know how to turn the page without you. The room went quiet. I missed you, Lena whispered. Julian walked up to her. Then let's never miss each other again. Someone in the crowd whispered, it's him. The billionaire. But Lena didn't care anymore. She smiled with tears in her eyes. I'm not a sidewalk girl. I'm Lena. I write poems. I love pancakes. And I love you. Julian gently took her hand. And I love you, Lena. Just as you are. A few weeks later, on a sunny morning in a garden filled with wildflowers, Lena and Julian were married. There were no fancy decorations. No gold invitations. Just their closest friends, stacks of their favorite books, and 2 promises. Lena wore a simple white dress with lace sleeves. Julian wore a blue vest with a sunflower pinned to it. Mrs. Bell brought cupcakes. Theo played the guitar. And the birds sang like they knew it was a fairy tale ending. I never thought I'd live in a penthouse, Lena said, laughing as she danced barefoot on the grass. Julian twirled her gently. And I never thought someone would come into my life from a sidewalk and change everything. She smiled up at him. So, what happens now? Julian thought for a moment. We write a new story. Together. One with joy, and mistakes, and morning pancakes, and quiet library days. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. That sounds like a perfect book. And in that little garden, where love mattered more than gossip, and kindness was the richest treasure of all, they began their happiest chapter yet. Hello tribe, hope we enjoyed today's story. Please kindly put what you've learned in the comments section. Please remember to hit the like button, share this to your friends and family as well as subscribe to see you on the next one. Bye.